Welcome back to Put It in Park podcast, the podcast where people meets parking and innovation meets impact. I'm your host today, Robert Wilson. And today's episode, it is a very special one. We're not joined by just one person. We have two, count them two, powerful voices behind the evolution of Scheidt and Bachmann. First up, we have Joe Galeas, Executive Vice President and CEO, a legacy leader in the mobility space, known for navigating the intersection of tradition and transformation. And alongside of him is Matt Blits, a technical force behind the curtain. With 25 years in IT, Matt's been instrumental in reshaping Scheidt and Bachmann's infrastructure from cloud platforms to cybersecurity strategies. Joe and Matt, thank you all for joining the call.
Yeah, excited to be here. Introductions like that, I mean, come on.
Yeah, you know we have to come correct, man.
Oh
Gotta give
man,
you
I
the
love
best.
it. Beautifully crafted.
Yep. Thanks.
Yeah,
I'm
man.
blushing. Yeah. It's beautiful.
No problem at all. I wanted to go ahead and get into some questions. I know we have some big wins coming up. You all are celebrating 30 years in the industry.
Yes, yes.
Man, Joe, I wanted to start with you. You worn so many hats in parking and mobility, from operations to leadership. What drew you into Scheidt and Bachmann at this point in your career?
So coming back, well, I mean, you and I had this conversation, right, where I left for about 2.5 years to pursue, I had worked for large corporations and organizations throughout my entire career, as a technician, like Comcast and Verizon and Sprint and Scheidt and Bachmann. And what one itch that I never got to scratch was working for startup organizations, right? So I left for 2.5 years to do that. Amazing experience, got to, and I gained an immense amount of intel too, working directly with CEOs. But there was even leaving SMB, that time, there was still a spot in my heart where I was like, I'll be back. Like it's like this is where I belong. I gotta go back to school, I gotta go back to school and relearn some things. But coming back this time, honestly, it was more of, being able to being able to respark those relationships that I had with the team, right? With my colleagues, with my superiors, even with the amazing people that I get to lead today. It truly is a completely different industry compared to others, right? Like for some reason, and they say it too, right? Like once you're in parking, you don't leave. You might try to
Oh
leave, like
yeah.
I did, but you don't leave. You end up coming back, right? And it's because the connections that you end up building and establishing, they've just become so deep, right? Like even with customers, I stayed in contact with some of our old customers, right? Because I'm on LinkedIn a lot. I was very active, so I would see the things that they were doing. And it was just the right timing, to be honest, coming back, right? I had left, got that, I was able to scratch that itch, worked with some startup organizations, learned a lot about sales and marketing, things that I wasn't really too much involved with SMB during my first round. But this time I am immensely involved with that and I absolutely love it. So to answer your question in short, I was guaranteed that I would have sales and marketing, and I was like, okay, then I'm good. I'll come
Gotcha. You're in.
back.
Man, that is so great. And you just kept those relationships and even past your transitions, you came back to where you knew home was. So that is just great to hear about, man. And Matt, I want to ask you about some things as well. So, you've
Sure.
seen this industry evolve, and Joe was talking about this is an industry unlike any other. And you work on the back end side of things. So what excites you most about SMB's mission when you came on board?
Yeah, it's honestly the legacy of the company was a huge draw for me just because they are an established force outside of parking as well as in the parking world, right? But I did not have any experience with the parking world before it came to Scheidt Bachmann. I had all kinds of hats in the past and different things. And so it was interesting getting that groundwork underneath me and seeing, as Joe mentioned, just how connected the industry is and how all these players kind of work together and play off each other. Yeah, honestly, when I started, it reminded me a lot of like the video game console wars because you had these big players like Data and Scheiden Bachmann and some of these other things in the same way that you had Nintendo and PlayStation and everything else, right? And yes, they're in competition, but there's also a lot of uh, pushing that they do to grow the industry together,
Mm,
right?
mm.
And so, in terms of the actual technology, we're getting to a point where, the cars are starting to self-drive and report themselves to the
Right.
parking, systems. We're getting, these kind of interconnected cloud identities where you can show up anywhere and kind of be able to park, and your phone or your car told you where to go park. Like it's this great kind of, conveniences that keep getting added into the system, and that type of stuff has been really fun to watch and to see grow. And I know we're going to talk about it a little bit today, but that kind of hype area where this industry does focus a lot on what's new and what's exciting and what's flashy, but it's not always it doesn't always pay out in the end. And it's one of the things I love about Scheidt Bachmann is that because of their history, they are really deliberate about what technology they get into and how they approach it. And that's been awesome to see.
I love that piece, man. Yeah, because innovation, we just keep growing. As the years come, there's so many new pieces of technology that's just dropping out. And sometimes you scratch your head like, how do I keep up in this
Right.
industry?
Yep.
But also, there's a lot of competition, but you also have good synergy. Like you're saying, people push you to be better. And now you have new outbreaks and new companies are coming along with innovation. So it leads me into my next question actually
Well,
about the
can I capitalize on something that Matt just said, because I
yeah,
think
for
and
sure.
maybe this is going to transition to what you're saying, but we talk about competition, right? And I
Right.
think the greatest players in any game, and I'm not just referring to sports, but even in any industry, I think they become so great because they appreciate the competition. They appreciate other
Exactly.
organizations that are doing other things that we might have not thought about, or they're doing things in a different way, or even the new players that come in, right? Like there's always a fear of these new players coming in and being the latest and greatest, sexiest organization. But we're a 150-year-old company, right? Like we're not going anywhere, but we do appreciate the competition. We do recognize and we respect that, because I strongly believe in the statement that competition breeds improvement. If you don't have strong competition, how are you thinking outside the box, right? And so that's one
Right.
of the things that I
Right.
absolutely love about Checking Back, is that we're always looking at what are these other organizations doing, and how can
For
we
sure.
do that but better?
Gotcha. No, that was a great piece. And you talked about the longevity aspect as well. That was actually what I was segueing into. So thank you, Joe, for that. But yeah, I wanted to know, how does a parking corporation create this type of longevity for so many years?
Oh, is that for
Yeah.
me or Matt?
Yeah. That's either
Yeah,
way. Yeah. So
anyone, anyone.
let me,
Well,
let
I would love to hear Matt's take, because
yeah,
he's
let
in
me
the
throw,
technical space, so he has seen the evolution of
right.
parking.
Yeah. Let me throw that in there. So, Scheidt Bachmann, uh, does a lot of things globally, right? Not just parking, but the way that the organization has been structured for years has always been about evolving and changing with what the needs are at the time, right? So you can talk about the steel manufacturing and the rail industry that we used to be part of, and they transitioned into fuel sales and the technology behind that, and were some of the first importers of the Intel 88 chips way back in the day to start using microprocessors in terms of parking technology, right? Like all these things, Scheidt Bachmann's always kind of grown with the times, and they continue to do that to this day. It just looks a lot different than startup culture in the U.S., right, or even
Gotcha.
modern business culture in the U.S., where there has been that, I know people use this a lot, but that move fast and break things idea, and that's not really what Scheidt Bachmann does. Like they've
Mm.
never been about these huge venture capital investments or trying to operate in that space. They kind of take these really deliberate, intentional, growth minded decisions about what technology they're going to get into, how they're going to do it, either homegrown or work with partners to get there, right? And a great example of that is like our connection with Evo Park, which brought us into an online and kind of customer management space that we weren't previously. But that's the biggest thing is having that kind of that weight of history behind us is really great in guiding decisions about what technology we're going to tackle next, right? And what innovations we're going to bring. And whether that was, we were some of the first LPR systems in the US, right? Came from Scheidt. And that was at a time where we were doing things in house. And over the years, we've grown and worked with partners. And now we support a wide range of
Oh yeah.
LPN and LPR solutions. So that that ability to adapt and evolve over time is what I think makes the organization successful and continue is that they have that dedication to say we're going to do the best we can for our people for our workers, and we're going to not just aim for necessarily the biggest profits quarter to quarter. They're looking at 10, 20, 30 years, and
Right.
that's part of the big draw for me to be here for sure.
No,
And
that
I
is so
think,
good.
Robert, to add to what Matt is saying, and he nailed it on the head, right? We just celebrated our global CEO's farewell, right? He's retiring in July, Dr. Miller, right? And one thing that he has always prided himself in is that this is a family business and it will remain a family business. We will never be influenced by outside investors. We will never be influenced by top line, bottom line objectives. I mean, we have our own objectives, right? Like at the end of the day, it's a business. We're here to make money, right? But we
Hmm.
can control and say, hey, we know it's going to take X amount of investment to get where we want to be in 5 years. And we don't have to worry about these investors telling us what we
Yeah,
need to do, right? Like we don't have that type of influence. Every single strategy, every single approach that we take is solely based on these internal conversations that we have. And
Right.
another thing to what Matt was saying, we're not just a parking company. Like
Right.
that's the beauty of it. It's like working for a company where we're like in four different areas. We are in four different areas, right? With signaling, petro, fare collections, parking. So we're grabbing best practices from all these different divisions. And it's one of the most beautiful things, right? One of my favorite trips throughout the year is what we call the Global Management Meeting, and it's held in December in Germany. And they bring all the managers, all the managing directors from every single subsidiary, every single division. We get together and you're just sharing ideas, you're exchanging thoughts and success stories. And that's what makes the company. It's having the access to all these different areas of expertise.
yeah. Man, how do you capitalize on, being able to manage these four areas? You're being prominent and you said signaling operations and parking. So how do you manage your time and make sure that, you're dedicating enough of your energy in all of these four sections to remain a prominent piece in each industry?
Well, that's what they're dealing with in Germany. Here in the US,
Hey,
we're focused on parking. My colleagues here in the US also have a fare collections division, but the space that Matt and I work in is strictly
just
parking.
parking.
Gotcha. Well,
Yep.
gotcha. Well, with just being in parking, what is one of the biggest shifts you've seen in the company's DNA since your return, Joe?
Ooh, um, honestly, it's been like two things, right? So one of the things that Matt touched upon is we basically opened up the ports, right? So now we're willing to integrate with all these other businesses and organizations and products and services that are going to make us a stronger organization. That was something that we were absolutely not for, at least when I first joined 10 years ago. So
Yep.
having, opening up those ports and having those capabilities that's going to be a force to be reckoned with. Number two, and I can only tease the audience with this, right? But we have this amazing product that we're currently developing that is going to be
Hey,
probably the
hey.
most
All right.
one of the
Let
most
me get the
simplified.
lawyers. Yeah. No. Go ahead.
It's there's excitement there, right? There's a new product that we're working on, and it's not here in the US yet, and I will not get into the details, but it's going to be an exciting next few years.
No, that is so great. Well, you heard it here first, folks. Man, you gotta be in the loop. You gotta get into the newsletter. You gotta stay active with Scheidt and
You'll get the
Bachmann.
exclusive, Robert, when it's finally ready.
Oh yes, and I can't wait. Man, that is
So
so good.
yeah, bridging off of that, I mean, we can talk about some of the, some of what's going into that.
Yeah,
We'll
please.
keep it vague for now, but the next generation of stuff, right? That, and not just for Scheidt Bachmann, but there's the real innovations now. Besides the interconnectedness, like we were talking about a little earlier, is how do we get past the barriers, right? How do we?
Right.
And it's been part of Scheidt Bachmann's mottos and philosophies, beyond barriers, and part of what we're trying to do though is drive that industry into that next area, especially here in the U.S., where we can get beyond areas where we can do things like ticketless parking with LPR, where there is no barrier going in and out. Your car is already registered to the system. You drive in and out as you please. You get your bill later, right, or your invoice. But kind of trying to remove some of those segments from or friction from the parking experience, right? And that's really what this is getting down to is as the technology has progressed and we could even say, democratized, where the components going into the technology are cheaper, they're easier to acquire, and we have a ton of, software developers, not just in Scheidt Bachmann, but just in the industry that are available. You're starting to see, what was a luxury or high-end thing like, the license plate recognition become common in every system, right? And that's going to continue. And so part of that next generation is going to be that interconnectedness between all of these different systems, right? Your phone, BMW has their own in-car system, right?
Right.
And
Hmm.
Tesla's got another, but all those are starting to have common communication protocols where they are starting to link together, and you are able to literally talk to the parking devices in the garage from your car, where you as a person don't have to do anything. You're just worried about driving in, finding a space. And in some garages, they've got the guidance systems where it'll do that for you too. So, like,
Right.
they're really trying to remove that friction to make parking a better experience for users, because that's where people are going to keep going, because the more growth we see in, automated driving and public transportation improvements, like, parking is going to become different, right, than it has been, and it already is in a lot of ways. So I think that's, that next gen, uh, that I know we're getting ready to roll out with, and some others are as well, is really going to be about that, about making a better experience for both the parking operators, the parkers themselves, and, you know, really tie this industry together in a way that I don't think they're quite prepared for, honestly. Like, it's going to be a madhouse at first, trying to figure out how to get all these systems talking to each other in a way that's not protective of their individual company, but making things better for the users, right? And that's going to be the big key.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
disruption sparks evolution, right? Like, so
Yeah,
Oh
you
yeah.
need disruption. Like, that is what sparks evolution. So we're all for it. And like Matt said, that maybe the industry is not ready for it, but I mean, that's part of the process.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
I agree 100% because you can't have everybody thinking the same. We have to have
No.
some movers and shakers in this industry. So just being
Yep.
able to hear that you all are customer focused first and wanted to create a solution that really accommodates the customer, hats off to you all. Matt, I
Appreciate that.
wanted to continue to talk about the tech side of things. What's the
Sure.
one transformation you've led that truly reflects the reinvention in action?
Yeah, honestly, the movement to cloud, right? So even when I first started, and I don't know how familiar different members of the audience are with this kind of pattern in tech, right? But there was a period of time where everything was on physical servers and compute, and that's how we were running everything on the internet, where it was an actual giant, rack and power system somewhere. That started evolving, right? So when I first got to Scheidt Bachmann, there were these giant tower-sized desktop PCs, right, that may have run our equipment and rack servers and everything else. And in today's world, we can get away with these little 4x4 boxes, and
Mm.
with more computing power than we had, running far more complicated systems. And so that, the as those things improved, the tech world moved on to cloud hosting, right? And then from cloud hosting, they went on to containerized computer workloads, and that's been a whole shift. And then from that, you went to these serverless workloads, which was another whole shift. And Scheiden Bachmann has kept up with that in a lot of ways. And again, not every new technology that came out, like blockchain or anything else, we didn't jump on, right? But we looked into it. There just wasn't a good use case for it. And again, Scheiden Bachmann's in this unique position where they're able to take a longer view on some of these things. And so now, we're getting into the AI shift. That's going to be huge.
Oh yeah.
Um, but I mean, like, in terms of what I've personally done or led, yeah, it's been the movement off of physical compute platforms into either the cloud or into virtualization. And doing that, to get back to the customer side of things, it provides for easier recovery time. It provides for better transferability if you need to move between platforms. It provides for better availability in terms of just uptime and being able to do maintenance and other things on the back end. It's been fun seeing these incremental improvements, and then every once in a while you get a pendulum shift. And so not just in our industry, but in others now, people are moving back out of the cloud because of the different costs involved. And
Right.
again, it's because you have a situation where AWS, Google, and Microsoft have the major cloud infrastructure pretty much monopolized, and there's a lot of ways where they're not innovating anymore in that, right? And so the prices keep going up, the innovation keeps going down, and companies are starting to realize that it makes more sense to move back on premises for some of these things. And that's how it's always going to go, right? The new technology push was move everything to the cloud 10 years ago. Now it's move some of it out, and it's going to balance out, and we'll get there, but we'll see it with parking too. I would predict the next big thing, and some or people are doing it in this space already, is that essentially every device will become its own uh, node in a much larger structure, but able to operate independently, right? And
Yes.
and I think that's really where we're headed, because when you think about things like the parking meters, or even just the entry equipment or exit equipment, like in a lot of cases they still require a server somewhere to do that command and control. We're at a point where it's possible to get that amount of power and reasoning in much smaller CPU packages. So yeah, I would bet that's where we're headed.
So I love that you asked Matt that question, Robert, right? Because it puts on display two things, right? Not just, how we are evolving as a company, right? But like I said, disruption sparks evolution. But there's another aspect to that, right? Internally, right? One of the things that I think we pride ourselves here at Scheidt Bachmann, and one thing that I definitely promote and advocate for, is allowing your people to utilize those creative juices, right? To actually think outside the box, right? It's not we don't tell Matt, here's what I need you to do. Like he will come up with some ideas and he would say, this is what we should do. And he'll make a strong case and we'll start experimenting and exploring that, right? Like that's the beauty of Schengen Backman, is that there's so much autonomy that's being spread around because we can appreciate and we can respect that we're surrounded by subject matter experts. Like Matt is great at what is great at what he does. I can't tell him how to do his job. I can't tell him how to think. I can't tell him here's what should be the next experiment. So, and Matt's being very core. Like there's been a lot of things that Matt has introduced to the company and within the organization, a lot of great ideas, right? But that's who Scheidt Bachmann is also, right? It's that culture of, if you've got a great idea, if you can make a strong case for it, all right, let's try it out. Let's see how far we can get with this. So, and this is one of the things that we were talking about internally not too long ago during a management meeting, is, giving our team that level of autonomy. You hire people to do a job, let them do that job, you
Yeah.
know?
No,
Yeah,
that's a
I'm
and
great
glad you
that's
asked
point.
that. I'm glad you asked that question.
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
that's just to give a really quick example of what Joe's talking about. Like where we are making some inroads on AI and machine learning and other things.
Hmm.
One of the first things the company did was open up a forum for anyone in the company, technicians, administrators, salespeople, whoever could come up with ideas, and then
Oh, that's
meet with the
nice.
meet with the tech folks to say, like, here's how we could see our lives improving, right? And um, we're still at that I'll call it internal tool stage with our AI
Hmm.
development, where we're building stuff internally. But it's that that to me was a standout example of how seriously they take uh, pride in the employees in this company, and that they do care about their opinions and want to know and drive that. And like you're saying, if people are always thinking the same way, because as you guys said earlier, people stay around parking for a long, long time, right? And in this industry, it can get easy to get stuck into what versus what can be. And
Right.
those outside voices, and I think from all levels of our organization, do a lot to help drive our success.
Right. You cannot do it alone. And there's so many people in another position, but they're still thinking about ideas for the tech. Like even me, I'm a non-technical founder, but I always have an idea about tech. So I just love that you all are including your company. Hey, bring your ideas to the table. We all get to eat at this table.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I want to add another part here because it seems like you all are a very close-knit family at your company. You both lead teams working across very different spectrums. What's one underappreciated part of the business that deserves a little bit more spotlight? And I'll start with you, Matt, and Joe, you can finish us off.
Uh, Joe probably knows where I'm going to go with this, but um, I so there's a really hard reality about being a technician, right? And Joe knows this from his past, but there's a really hard reality, which is that most of the time you're not there because everything is great and people are happy, right? Yeah, you're a technician, you show up on site, it's because something's broken and people are upset because obviously
Yeah.
there's business impact and everything else. And that's probably the one underappreciated side that I think, I can point to in terms of just, it's in every industry, but I think it's really remarkable how technicians, not just in our company, but again across the industry, are able to deal with that with such grace in a regular manner, right? And it extends all the way up to the groups and folks that I work with, where by the time that problem has been escalated to where we're at, there's usually a really serious problem, and there's a lot of pressure and tension to get it done. And the ability for people in our organization to focus on that and to put the customer first and to kind of keep that mentality, even though some of these guys, that I work with directly, they've been in the company 30, 40 years, but they still show up every day and with
Hmm.
that idea of trying to get that through. And yeah, I think that service level, because it's that interaction with the customer at the most basic level, like whether you're a parking operator and managing the garage or whether you're a service technician going out there, like there's all kinds of conflicts that you find yourself in, and their ability to manage those with grace and patience and a drive to keep showing up and doing it again and again is amazing. And I think that's an underlooked part of some of our organization.
No, thank you,
Yeah,
brother.
and Matt is spot on, right? Like never, don't underestimate the power of your front line of an organization, right? Like
Right.
that is the core of the business. We talk about it a lot, that 70% of our organization is made up of frontline employees, right? So you lose that 70%, you're no longer a business, right? So it's
Yeah.
so important to show recognition, show appreciation, put the spotlight on them because there is so much work that is done on that front line. Like Matt, like myself and Matt, we're in management positions. We get to make a lot, we get to make a lot of decisions. We get to kind of, experiment with a lot of ideas and launch initiatives and stuff like that. But execution is key to all that. And you can't execute any of this without that front line. And now we're in a position, right, where, and I'm going to go two ways with this, right? Like employees have to do what their superiors say, but that's not what I want. I want them to want to do what we're asking them to do. And
Yeah.
the only way you're getting buy-in from your front line is by showing that you value their presence, you value their efforts and their work and their contributions because like Matt and myself, we were technicians. I've lived that life. I know what it's like on the front line to feel like I'm on an island by myself, but I also know what it feels like to know that I have all the support that I need and it's just a phone call away. So, and I say this to anybody, it's not just in the parking industry, right? It's any industry. Like, if you have a frontline organization, like make sure that you're showing them that they are equally as valuable as the management team that you're investing in as well because none of that matters if your front line does not feel like they have the absolute support. Because you ever watch the movie 300? You ever see that movie 300 with Gerard Butler?
Yeah, I've
Right.
heard of it. I haven't seen
Right.
all of it.
All the men in the front with all these shields, right?
Hmm.
They're the first point of attack. You've got all your strong, your strong soldiers and everybody behind them in case there's a breach in that front line.
Yeah,
But it's that
gotcha.
front line that they invest in so much, and they turned down. They rejected a man because he could not raise his shield up. That's how important that front line is. You have to keep that protected. So as management at SMB, that's and it's something that we launched like this technician of the month program. We want to make sure that we recognize them and we'll grab nominations from management teams and we'll review them and we'll say, okay, that's our super tech of the month. Again, just that level of recognition can go so far in how much they feel valued and appreciated. Because let's not forget, they are the ones taking the hits by the customers. And like Matt said, they're not showing up just because they have free time. They're showing
Right.
up because a ticket was submitted that something is broken, something needs to be fixed. Sometimes it's a recurring issue. They're the ones taking that hit. So you got to make sure that they feel valued and appreciated.
No, that is so good. And another piece I wanted to add, it's also refreshing for the folks on the front line when they get that understanding, like yourself, Matt or Joe. Hey, I've been here in these trenches too, and this is why you're on the front line.
Right.
Honestly, so just being able to have that inclusivity, man, that is just great to see somebody higher up, especially if you said that's 70% of your workforce, just getting to
Yep.
see, oh my gosh, you're at this position, Joe, you're at this position, Matt, but you're right here speaking with me, making sure that I'm accommodated. So, man,
Right.
I just love that piece right there. And
I
Matt,
appreciate that.
no problem, man. And Matt, I wanted to talk about rebuilds and migrations. So you led massive systems,
Yep.
rebuilds and migrations. Sometimes people said it couldn't be done, right?
Yep.
What's
True.
the key to pushing bold infrastructure decisions inside a legacy company?
Well, yeah, there's kind of a long-standing joke inside Scheidt and Bachmann that, we're a 21st century software company that moves at the speed of a 19th century rail company, right? And it's true to an extent. We were talking about the ability to kind of, hold off on some of these tech cycles as they happen, but that's the other edge of the sword, right? Is that sometimes it is hard to get a push to move and to do some of these things and to show the value and how that's going to turn out. And it's all about managing risk and understanding beforehand what it is that your targets are, who your stakeholders are, keeping them informed, and that kind of communication and understanding not only going into projects but coming out of them. Like that's going to be the key. Like there are very few times in my career I can think of where every project went smoothly, right? And it's just kind of a fact of life. But that communication and being able to communicate to the stakeholders, like what the delays are, or what the holders are, or what the outcomes are going to be, setbacks that you may have, progress that you've made, and being able to maintain those lines of communication, uh, that's actually been better than the technology moves themselves, right? Like that's proven to be the secret sauce in getting any of these things done is again the people involved. So the technical challenges I don't want to bore everybody with, but
Oh, you're not.
getting no matter, okay, no matter what you're going to get into with that keeping that communication line open and everybody informed, that's been the real secret to getting it done.
Gotcha. Yeah, I actually, if you could expound upon that, man, I want to learn a
Sure.
little bit more about how you take an outlook into making the decisions, keeping the stakeholders informed from a technical standpoint, and what does the communication look like in between the tech team? Are you all using Slack? How all are you talking to make sure
Teams.
that
Yeah,
you're okay, gotcha, teams and addressing these sprints?
right. I will say when I started here, we did, we were already in SAP and a few of these other things. And those enterprise business softwares, everybody knows has a bit of a reputation where it's incredibly tough to do migrations. It's incredibly tough to do changes, right? And uh, we managed to get through an SAP migration in my time here, and that's amazing. Um, in terms of communication, a lot of the world still runs on Excel, I will say, and we're not immune to that. But we try to get away from it as much as we can. We're deeply invested into Microsoft's ecosystem in terms of their Office and 365 and Teams. Just in terms of the shared directories and everything else, we still do a lot there. Uh, a lot of communication happens over Teams, or if not over phone calls. We're still really big on phone calls in our organization, I can say. Email, we try to uh, make it the record keeper, but the actual communication happens in person. We
Right.
try to, right? We're subject to the same uh, pitfalls with that as every other organization, but we're that's mainly it. Our tech stack itself, in terms of our product facing stuff, I can say is widely varied at this point because we're in the middle of this transition to that next generation. And so it's changed a lot in my time here. We are we are at the first big jump, I would say, away from the evolution of our initial kind of desktop clients and software and parking servers and into a fully native cloud environment. And that's obviously changing all the tools that we work with on a daily basis, and what our technicians are learning, right? There was a time where it was all electromechanical replacement of parts, right? That was what our main frontline technicians were focused on. And now they're focused on, collecting JavaScript logs or whatever else from the API that was running, and being able to look at those kind of problems as well as, as well as the mechanical equipment as well. And so that's, yeah, those are, yeah, we could go into more specifics if you want, but that's the, we're a Microsoft house, I would say first, and yeah, Teams, honestly, I'll give it a thumbs up at this point. It's not always reliable in terms of video communication, but man, has it improved our day to day, in the same way that Slack does. And we did use Slack in the past for sure.
We did. That's right.
Yeah.
Actually, Matt introduced Slack to the organization back in like
Oh, wow.
2016.
No, yeah, no, I try to be a tech evangelist as much as I can, and my head and the stuff that I honestly enjoy even outside my work life, lets me pick up on a lot of what industry standards are in software development or in game development or in some of these other areas that, when I see working well for other people, I want to bring home so I can play with those toys too.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I remember when Matt first introduced Slack to the organization, I was like, hey, if you think this is going to be a great tool, then yeah, let's do it. And then
Hmm.
a few months later, I saw a commercial. I was like, holy shit, this is like a big thing. And
At
Matt
the
was like, listen, I'm trying to get at the beginning of something big.
Yeah, yeah. At the time, we were very much email only, right? And uh, it, yeah, yeah. I'm so glad we're getting away from that. Yeah, that's awesome. So,
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Nothing beats the dial pad on your phone.
yep,
Nothing beats that.
yep.
Absolutely not. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I got an email and my response was a phone call.
Yep.
Right, yeah. Yeah, it's nothing like that personal feel, man. And
Right.
also, it seems like you have great internal communication. I also want to talk about external communication. And Joe, I want to talk a little bit about integration. So, there's a lot of noise around integration, but in real time terms, what does successful integration look like for operators and cities?
I mean, honestly, I think it comes down to, and there's a couple ways that I could answer this question, right? But, you got to listen to what the customers are saying is the demand, right? You have to listen to what they're saying is the pain point.
Right.
And it's going to be unique across the board, right? What's a pain point to a customer in, Oakland, California could be completely different to a pain point to a customer that's in Boston, Massachusetts, right? But so what I think we've done really good, with regards to this area of the business is, our VP of product management, Hector Miranda, like he stays close to this. He knows what the customers need. He listens to what the customers want. And he's so aware of what's coming down the pipeline of what could be introduced to address these pain points. So the short answer to your question of what makes successful is honestly, it's simple. It's attacking that pain point,
I love
giving
that.
that pain point, a solution that isn't always born within SMB. Like sometimes you have to go outside those walls and integrate with organizations that can help us deliver on a solution for that pain point. But it comes down, again, you got to listen to the customers. They're going to tell you exactly what's working, what's not. They're going to tell you, I wish your system could do this, or I wish there was a capability for XYZ. And again, and I've said this probably 100 times over the years, do not ignore what your subject matter experts are telling you within the organization. I know Matt is very close to a lot of these technical forums outside of parking, and he can see what's coming down the pipeline. He can see what's trending. You have to appreciate that. You have to listen to your subject matter experts of, hey, this could be the next best thing. This could be what solves, some of these pain points.
Man, that is so good right there. As I was like listening, I was like, you're right. It's about hearing the pain points and hearing from the experts. It's so much better to use your two ears to listen than your one mouth to lead.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
man, Matt, I want to continue to talk about integrations, right? So, you're
Sure.
hands-on with that complexity. What are the biggest integration challenges or API data standards or operator expectations that you might have run into?
Yeah. So everybody wants everything to work the way their last product did, right? Which is this weird friction pain point you guys were talking about, where sometimes it's not always worth going down those roads, right? But if you start asking whys, the whys behind why they're doing these things, then you get to the real answer, right? And so getting through that process between two different sets of development teams that have their own APIs and why they've made their own decisions like that has proven to be a bit challenging. But again, as long as that communication's open and there's this mindset of like trying to work with those other organizations so that you both adapt to meet each other's needs, that's been huge. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, right? I do and have seen a lot of startups in this space with their own products, usually around some form of data analytics, right? Or pre-booking or these kind of things. And there's almost a reluctance to adapt anything that they've done to work with the other systems, right? And we don't have in this industry like a standard protocol for reporting, a short-term parker entry and exit, right? We don't. The industry's still not at that point yet where we've caught up to the rest of the tech world and have something like a data standard, right? Or even for just reporting, right? There's no standard reporting across the different operators because they want different things. And again, one of the beauties of our systems, and I know some of the other ones out there, is that they do have that flexibility to kind of do a lot behind the scenes and then adapt the end report or the end product for whatever that operator wanted. And keeping those options open are key. Again, I don't think the industry is quite ready for where we're headed yet, but I love where it is headed, which is that it is going to be these open standards and these open communications between them, because that's what the customers want ultimately, right? So if they change operators or they change out of the Scheidt Bachmann system, that they're able to take that data and that ownership and that reporting and those practices with them. And I think that's going to continue to be a friction point in this industry. But I believe that through better cooperation and on our side as well, we have some work to do in terms of how we adapt our APIs and the speed at which we do that. But bridging those gaps, I think will be better for the industry and for the customers and ultimately for people parking on the street.
As
Gotcha.
you, Robert, as you listen to Matt, right, and all these great questions that you're asking, and the amount of information that Matt is able to provide within his answers, it's one of the things I was most amazed, and I think you and I talked about this during the intake call. One of the things I was most amazed and just in awe about with this industry was just how technical it is. You just like
Right.
you have no clue. You literally have no clue if you are not within the walls of this industry. And just listening to all of these answers from Matt, would you think that we were on a parking podcast?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, but
Right?
yeah,
You would you
I
would
mean
you would
that's
say this must be some sort of technological, podcast. No, this
Yeah,
is not a
I
parking
definitely
podcast.
agree.
so. I
Not
mean,
once did we say the word valet. Not once did we,
yeah,
like
Right.
the typical words that you hear in parking. So, but I
Hmm.
just think like it just speaks to like just how just how in depth this industry actually is, right? Like there's so much technology, so much room for growth, so much innovation, so much space for thinking outside the box. I mean, it's an exciting industry to be in, is basically what I'm trying to say.
yeah, I love the old timers around the industry that have been around for 30, 40 years and always like to joke about the cigar box with the cash is how we started,
Yes.
right? As a tickets and cigar box and cash and collection and yeah, it's no, it's going to continue to happen, right? Like you've seen it across all industries, this kind of, everything is internet connected, right? Or everything had an app, 10, 15 years ago. And now that's just kind of like table stakes to be in the game, right? And that's going to continue to keep happening. And these kind of open API standards um, between parking, I think, is it's going to happen. And so, you can decide which side of the game you want to be on, and we definitely want to stay in the game. So,
Oh yeah. You all have done that. You are running the game, honestly. So
Yeah.
that's good to hear with longevity. I want to open up to a new segment. So this is called Cones and Curveballs. It's one of our signature segments. We do quick hits, bold opinions, and no softballs. So are y'all ready to get into some of
No
these
softballs.
conversations that I
Just
got?
bats to the knees.
Yes.
I love
Yeah,
it. I
man.
love it.
Okay, great. So, Joe, I am starting with you.
All
What's
right.
one piece of parking infrastructure we keep trying to modernize that might just really need to go altogether?
Oh, that's a really good one. Um, Oh man, yeah, you got me thinking on this one. So there's so much modernization going on in parking right now, and it's necessary. So I'm gonna answer part of that question. Right? I just think cash needs to go. Like the amount of money it costs to build the components and subcomponents to to transact, to operate within cash transactions. And then not just that, but the losses that you find on the books by dealing with cash, right? Like honestly, it just seems like it's a non-essential item today in the parking industry, right? And now we are seeing more and more operators and clients and municipalities going away from that, right? Like now they're
Hmm.
looking at the QR codes, right? There's still some hesitation there because the scams and everything like that, but we're starting to see that people are starting to entertain the idea of not having pay stations on site. It's going to save in maintenance, it's going to save in cost, it's going to save in the sale price, it's going to save in their operational cost because, like I said, the losses with cash. But you still have some of these locations where, like, everybody says cash is king, and I get that, but I don't think it's king here. Like we just need to be without it. That needs to go.
Gotcha. Man, that's an interesting piece. I'm also hearing some conversations at some of the trade shows I go to that, a lot of universities, they are going away from the cash aspect. They're not allowed to take cash. So that's very interesting that you're saying that. I think some people across the industry are starting to make this change. So I
Right.
definitely agree with you on that. I feel like
I
we're
mean, if you
coming into a contactless world.
Yeah, because I mean, you have your wallet, right, where your credit cards don't even have to be swiped or inserted anymore. You just tap the machine.
Yeah.
It's in your phone. Same like, I don't even walk into the store. It's a funny story, the real story that happened today, right? I walked into Walgreens to pick up some things, and
Mhm.
the lady needed my ID for the prescription. I was like, "Oh, I didn't bring my ID. I have my phone. I don't carry my wallet anymore. Everything is on my phone."
Yeah, that's so
Any
true.
possible transaction, I could just pull up my phone and complete the transaction. So, like that is I think that's starting to take off. Like you said, there's a lot more conversations taking place now at these trade shows. But yeah, we got to do away with the cash.
I,
Gotcha.
I have what I call my parent check about any new technology, right? Which is trying to think about how my parents or any older people will deal with any particular change, right? Because there's a huge segment of the population, and the cashless thing and the moving away from paper tickets, whether it's an airplane ticket or whether
Mm,
it's a parking ticket or whatever else, there is going to be friction there, right? And there
Yeah.
are some challenges to overcome with like accessibility to cash and everything else, and it's behavior, right? And I'm totally on board with you guys. I think cash needs to go, but man, those those behavioral patterns of people are hard to break, especially
Yeah.
especially yeah, and yeah, that's going to be it's going to happen and it's going to be tough, but it's going to be fun to watch.
Well, because I can only imagine, right? Depending on, for example, there are some parts of the United States, right? Like the demographic where they know that their clients, 80% of their clients deal in cash, right? So if you're
Sure.
driving down the street and you see a garage that says, you know, cashless, operation, you
Hmm.
might miss out on a client, right? Because they'll be like, well, I
Right.
only deal with cash. So, but it's
Yeah.
it's gonna take some time before that just becomes the norm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's definitely gonna be a learning curve, honestly.
Oh, of course, absolutely.
Matt, I want to ask you more of a technical question here.
All
This is
right.
just hypothetical. You may
Sure.
already be working on these changes, but you worked across multiple architectures. If you had to rebuild SMB's core system today, what's one principle that you would guide your entire tech stack through?
Ah. I'm going to take it easy out here because it's one word, but it has a lot of things behind it, which is scalability, right? And uh, that would be the main thing. And what I mean by that is, part of uh, the initial development of this current generation of parking software that we're on, and the seeds of this have been going back almost 20 years now, right, through different versions, was kind of this idea that there was maybe, one or two garages that were operated, right? And at our airports and larger locations, there's usually, multiple spread out across different areas. But generally, it was like this single, we'll call it a single tenant architecture, right? And
Hmm.
and where you had this kind of you were focused on doing this one thing for this one area, and the industry as a whole and Scheidt Bachmann has started moving away from that. But for us, and I think for a lot of folks in the space, it is adapting what you had to work in that environment instead of building it with that environment in mind, right? With that as a native environment. And that's again where this next generation stuff is coming in, is that it's all multi-tenant, architecture where we can support completely different organizations through the same tech stack in a centralized way, right? But still keep it resilient, still keep it local. It's yeah, that scalability has been a challenge, and I love that we're moving away from that and into cloud and other things. But yeah, that's what I would focus on.
Gotcha. Pitching it back over to you, Joe.
All right.
Where do operators go wrong often when launching new systems? Is it the tech choice, staff training, customer communication?
Hmm.
Where do you feel like people go down a rabbit hole and it's just wrong?
Oh man, I want to say probably about 70% of our clients are operators, so you're going to get me in trouble here.
Oh man.
I have a strong opinion on this one, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I do too. I do too. So I think there's a couple of avenues that we can go down here, right? I think so the operator space, they are, it's like your front line, right? If you're a municipality or an airport, right? Your operators are like your front line. Like they know the equipment, they know the clients, they know the trends, the habits, et cetera, et cetera. But I think what we're starting to, one thing that we're trying to influence is making sure that there's a bridge between the operator and executive management.
Love
Because
that.
a pain point for the operator might not match the pain point for executive management. And I can't tell you how many times we've had, we've made these site visits and the conversations with the operators are completely different than the conversations with the executives. They are apples to oranges with regards to what they perceive the equipment to be, as far as what they think is great, what they think is challenging, as far as what they perceive to be is missing within the feature, or even just a lack of knowledge of not knowing that this was an actual feature in their system. So I think, that's one of the avenues, is that, there needs to be a stronger bridge there. And number two, I mean, I can't emphasize this enough. Training, 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 training. Like you have a new system. So it's, yes, training is an absolute necessity. You should not take short on that investment. Now, I think, just like every other vendor, we provide, training within the scope of the work, right? To get you going and everything. But there's advanced level of training. If you really want to understand the ins and outs of the system, the reporting, the features, the structures, like everything that you can do with it, that is an investment that's going to allow you to become more successful as an operator, and it's
Right.
going to make your system and your perception of the system that much more pleasant.
No, that's so good right there. Yeah, you really have to invest into the training piece. And it's also strengthening the relationship, right? It's like, hey,
Yes.
I'm gonna hold your hand all the way until you need me to let go. And maybe we took the training wheels off of that bike and you're riding on it yourself, man. So no,
Yeah.
that's a really good piece. And I thank you for just being able to capitalize on that. Matt, I want to go back to, we're talking about cloud and IoT. So, what is one buzzword in the cloud or IoT space that you think the parking industry misuses or they really just don't understand this term yet?
Same thing a lot of people are struggling with right now, which is AI, right? AI enabled or AI tools. Um, it's if you want to talk about hype cycles, I'm sure you're familiar with most of the audiences about just being inundated with all these AI enabled PCs or operating systems or anything else at this point, right? And you know, it's a little tricky as to what people actually want to do with this technology. And there's so many variations on what it is, right? Whether it's these general predictive
Right,
text models or image models that are using, these diffusion patterns, and all of that gets lumped into this idea of AI. And uh, I'll give everybody credit. 10 or 15 years ago, everybody was saying cloud, 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 right? Whereas, I challenge anybody today to still define what the cloud is, besides being a computer that someone else owns that you get to use. And yeah, I think that's our next big challenge in the parking industry is how to incorporate AI correctly. And every industry is dealing with it, and
Yeah.
people are not wrong that these technologies are going to change everything, but they're also not right that it's changing everything right now, right? And so
yeah,
it's going to be interesting to see how this evolves. I genuinely hope that human-made podcasts and human tech jobs are still around in a few years. Like I'm not beyond worrying about that, but I also know that there's a lot of hype and a lot of marketing behind what they say these things can do right now. And so having a clear head and looking at that better, not just in our industry, but again, across industries, is something that we need to deal with. Everybody does, right? Whether you're a consumer or whether you're a developer or working on these things, like it is going to become as ubiquitous as the internet. We just got to figure out how that's gonna, what that's gonna look like.
Yeah, man, that's some great insight right there. Man, I have a wild card for both of you. I'm going to
All
start with
right.
you, Joe, and then Matt, you could take us home. What's the most unexpected piece of feedback you ever received, but it was actually some feedback that changed how you lead or build?
So that one actually stands out. That's an easy one to answer, right? So, those that know me well, know that I'm two things, right? A data maniac and I'm process driven, right? Like I love the numbers, I love the data. Like that's what I go to if I'm not sure what direction to go in. But process driven because, I do appreciate structure and organization. And there's a reason why you have a step-by-step booklet to things. There's a reason why your vehicle comes with a manual, right?
Right.
So, but one of the pieces of feedback that I got, and this is me, 10, 15 years ago, right? I relied on that so much that I had to be reminded that I can't be so bureaucratic, right? There has to be gray areas. There has to be wiggle room, like there has to be an opportunity to pivot, within a process. And as far as the data goes, you can't rely on that 100%. You should only rely on that to the max of 90%. Your gut instinct, till your experience, your history, your knowledge still gives you that value. So don't be so reliant on the numbers and don't be so rigid with the processes. And I'll never forget, like I was literally told, don't be so effing bureaucratic. Like allow yourself the flexibility to say, okay, the data's telling me this, but there's an instinct here. Like I know the customer's going to want this instead. I know the customer's going to appreciate this, right? And
Mm-hmm.
with regards to a process, like let the people feel like there's flexibility and wiggle room. Like that's how you innovate. That's the whole, like that was part of the conversation at the very beginning, right? Is like, how do you create innovation? Well, you create that by eliminating all the rigidity of things. Like you can't just tell people like you have to follow these step by step. So that was a huge game changer for me with regards to leading, because I kind of took that to another level and was like, okay, well, not just with regards to process and analyzing data, but even in managing people, right? Give them that room, give them that flexibility, let them
Right.
create their own processes. What I look at as a process, this is where I started to appreciate having subject matter experts. I can't tell Matt how to do his job. I can't tell him, here's how you should prioritize your day just because that works for me.
Mm-hmm.
So that feedback actually helped me grow as an individual, as a leader. And it's something to this day that, that I appreciate, because I was a stubborn guy 15, 20 years ago.
Weren't we
I
all?
think that's one of the first disagreements you and I ever had actually was about that exact topic. And I know
I know it was.
I will be a living testament that Joe has grown so much as a manager and yeah, no, for sure. That's awesome.
Man, that is so good. Y'all better tap in. Matt and Joe are dropping gems. I hope y'all got your notebook
We
ready
are
and your
dropping
pencil.
them.
I'm telling you, man. Man, it
And can
is
I and
so
can I
good.
just say before this segment ends, can I just like commend and praise Matt for his
Yeah, let's give
skulls
Matt
and
his
pizza
flowers,
and
man.
sword shirt? Like that is just badass.
It's
Yeah,
it's pizza it's Pizza Friday, right? So we have a tradition in my family that I've carried over since I was a kid. Where we have Pizza Friday, and so my kids love it when I wear the pizza shirts on Pizza Friday. So
I love
oh
it.
man.
I
Yeah,
love
that's
it.
dope, man.
And
I
you know,
like
and I,
that.
and again, it's one of those things where like, this is what I love about this company too, is that you get to see people, in their personalities. You get to
Right.
see them express themselves. It's not this was never a, hey Matt, we're gonna be on this podcast, so please wear a collared shirt, please wear a tie, do this, do this. No, it was you show up as Matt because we're
I
talking
love
to Matt.
that.
We're
Right.
talking to Matt. We're not talking to anybody else, So, just when he showed up, I was like, yes, he showed up as himself. Love
this was
it.
hard for me. I'm normally in a tie, so yeah, no, this
No,
was
and see,
fun.
and that's the
Yeah,
thing that you don't know, Robert, is that Matt
yeah,
will show up to management meetings with a shirt and tie. So
Oh
like,
wow.
yeah,
Okay.
so I was
yeah,
like, please show up as who you are. And here
yeah,
he is. I
Yeah,
was like, I love
man.
it.
yep. I
Yeah,
tried, man.
that is so great because you have to be your authentic self. This is like who you're displaying to the world, you know. It's all about how people deal with you in first interactions and also the
Yeah.
longevity to come with those relationships. It's always what you re are remembered by. So, man, just I appreciate all of you. Just bring your authentic self to the show because that's how I operate, man. I'm just myself and you either like it or you don't, but guess
I
what?
know
I'm
you've
I'm
got the
still gonna be
subwoofers
me.
blasting in the background.
Right, man. You gotta
It
be
was the first thing
authentic.
I noticed, and I was like, this is going to be an awesome show.
Oh yeah. So yeah, man. Joe, I want to ask you, what's next for Scheidt Bachmann? Anything big on your roadmap that we should definitely keep an eye out on as listeners?
Oh, there's definitely something big. I just can't get into too much detail right now, but there's something that we're working on. But internally, I think one of the things that I do want to put out there is, what we are working on as a management team is we're getting in front of we're getting in front of more and more executives
That's
at
good.
airports, executives at municipalities. We want to understand from the top down what their requirements are, what their necessity is, and it's all about relationships, right? So we're starting relationships today that might not produce anything for another 2 years, but that's what a relationship is. You
Right.
start something, you
Mm-hmm.
can't just show up to somebody's door and say, "Hey, I heard you got an RFP. Here's my proposal." But like, what the fuck are you? Like, you just showed up to my
Yeah.
door,
Yeah.
So
Honestly.
we're definitely changing the way that we approach things. We're looking so far more ahead in advance nowadays on who we need to connect with, who we want to be partners with, which relationships we want to nurture. But as far as the product and service side, I told you, Robert, you'll get the exclusive. You're just gonna have to be patient.
Man, I'm a little impatient, but yeah, we're gonna wait.
Oh, me too. Trust me, me too.
Yeah, Matt, from the system side of things, what improvements, if you can talk about it as well? I know we're hush hush today, but are there any improvements that you're most excited about delivering over the next year?
Yeah, our cloud infrastructure has grown and evolved to a point where I do really feel like we're going to be one of the industry leaders on that front, and not just in terms of the operating software at the garages, right? In terms of the integrations between all these platforms that we were talking about, I think that we have something really strong, and I think that we're approaching it the right way. And I, hope we can evangelize in the future about these kind of data standards and other things that need to happen in this industry. And I think, you know, in the near future, like Scheidt has some really good tools to make happen. And I don't think that this is going to be the same type of proprietary IP that we've been dealing with in the past.
Hmm,
And I'm really excited about that.
That's
love it.
so good. And yeah, Joe, I want to kick it back to you for folks who want to connect with either of you. And Matt, you'll also get your opportunity to promote or just learn about SMB. How can we get in contact with you all?
I mean, I'm all over LinkedIn. That's the platform that I utilize to promote the company, to promote ideas, to support other individuals, whether you're in parking or not. So if you're looking to connect with me, LinkedIn is the way. If you want to learn more about the company, we do a lot of advertisement on there as well. You can go to our website, um, or you could just come to our booth at the IPMI.
I heard
Yeah.
that. What about you, Matt? Do you have an email or anything you would like to share?
Yeah, it's just the blitz.mat at Scheidt-Bachmann-USA.com,
The
which I will send in a
Blitz.
link. Yeah, no, it's blitz.mat.Scheidt, yeah, at Scheidt-Bachmann. But yeah, you reach out to me that way. Happy to answer any questions in general. I'm actually off all social medias, so I'm the opposite of Joe. I like to stay in my little mountain lair with my wizard cap on and get things done. So but if anyone wants to reach out or does want to talk about the tech stack, we can go from there. And yeah, I'll throw one thing out there. If it doesn't happen shortly, I've got something in the works about a data standard that I would really like the industry to get into, and we'll see how that turns out. And when
Oh
that
yeah.
when that happens, there'll be a lot more ways to get a hold of me. But we'll have to tackle that when we get
Looks
Gotcha.
like you got another topic for another show one day, Robert.
there.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, this has been so good. And Matt, I'm the same way. I deleted my socials as well. The last
Yep.
thing I'm on is LinkedIn. I'm a
There you
LinkedIn
go.
junkie at this point, man.
That's how I found you, Robert. That's how I
Yeah,
found
yeah.
you.
I love LinkedIn like that. That's the platform for me. I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
TikTok is okay, Instagram is okay. My people are on LinkedIn.
yeah, yeah, me
So,
too.
yeah, man. But I'm gonna go ahead and close this out, man. Joe and Matt, I thank you so much for joining us today, man. It's been an awesome podcast. We kept it authentic. I know we got some great insight on this podcast, and I just want to give you all a big thanks for your time. And just to wrap it up for my viewers, from legacy to leadership to back-end brilliance, today's conversation reminds us that innovation happens both in the boardroom and in the server room. To our listeners, remember, parking isn't just infrastructure, it's experience. And it's people like Joe and Matt who are quietly keeping us both moving forward. Until the next time, y'all. Stay curious, stay connected, and as always, remember to put it in park. Peace.